Don't stop now. Reaching for a distant star. Don't stop now. Isn't it strange how we're safe at home? So they're counting days until the second go. If you're gonna make a change, you have to let me know. Turn the shit around, just not a top the lungs. It's all you need to do.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sleeklens live broadcast for this week. I was really debating on whether to do this one on a specific topic, but I was actually looking, so you guys can get a gist of where this show came from. I was actually looking at a lot of the comments that were coming in via the Sleeklens Members Club page, the regular Sleeklens page, a couple comments on the website, and there's a lot of people out there that are actually having problems with Lightroom. They're having problems trying to figure out the beginnings of Lightroom, the basics of Lightroom. Some of you who might have just purchased Lightroom have never really had a experience with Lightroom. And some of you who, this is kind of the backwards way of doing it, because this is the way I did it as well. But who actually used Photoshop first. Usually Photoshop is like the secondary program if you're a photographer, because it's a little bit tougher to get into. And so, like for myself, I used Photoshop first, and then I got into Lightroom, and I was still trying to figure out all the really simple ways of editing photos in Lightroom, but I wasn't able to do it because I was so used to Photoshop. So I've got a couple things that I want to cover in this particular live show. If you have questions during the live show, please go ahead and write them as a comment in the Facebook feed, and I'll try to get to them as soon as I can with the end of the show. But also stick around for the coupon code that will be good for 24 hours only. Really special deal for anything that you can get on the sleeklens.com site. There's going to be a lot of stuff out there, so you're going to get a special coupon code just for tuning in and coming into the live show. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into some of these topics here, some of these tips and tricks for you to kind of look over, especially if you're a beginner. These are the ones that you kind of want to really get used to, because these can really save you time as far as editing goes, and really start setting your photos apart. So let's go ahead and jump into Lightroom, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so here we are in Lightroom, and you can see I have this nice little photo here. And what I want to do is actually I want to make this photo into a let's just say I want to give it a different tone. It's kind of got a lot of a yellow tone going on, And what I want to do is make this yellow tone, make this kind of cool effect, but then make a preset. A lot of you may have heard presets in Lightroom, and that's probably one of the bigger selling features of Lightroom. Not so much now, but before, you were able to make a preset in Lightroom and apply it to a bunch of different photos. Now the presets that you actually have in Lightroom transition over to Photoshop, so you can actually apply almost the same exact effects in Photoshop and Lightroom. So I have this particular photo here, and I'm going to go ahead and let's change the temperature of it just to kind of show you what we're doing here. So I'm going to change the temperature of it. I'm going to cool it down a little bit, and I'm not going to go crazy with this one because this is just to show you how the effect can look with different photos. So I'm going to go ahead and cool it down here a little bit. I'm going to take the highlights down a little bit as well. I'm going to take the blacks down to kind of darken up these mountains here. So that's going to take the blacks down. And let's go ahead and increase the vibrance as well. And again, I'm just doing basic edits to this to kind of show you what these presets can do. So I'm going to cool this down here a little bit more. And let's go ahead and do some contrast adjustments here. There we go. Looks good. Okay, so this is the kind of effect that we want to apply to our photos. So I'm going to go ahead and go ahead and zoom in here to make sure I'm looking good with all the effects here, looking good with all the colors. Looks good. So now I want to create a preset. So as most of you know, Sleeklens.com has a bunch of presets out there, a bunch of presets that you could purchase. And they're really, really great. It's amazing features that we have over there, amazing kind of effects that you can get. But you could actually create your own as well if you want to. If you have particular effects that you always do to your photos, you can create your own presets. So I have this particular image here, and I want to apply this same effect to another photo. So I'm going to go over here to the left side. I'm in the develop module here. I'm going to go to the left side, and I'm going to go to where it says presets here. I'm going to click this plus button, and I'm going to say create preset. And this is going to bring up a dialog box that will allow you to create any kind of preset you want, any kind of changes to the photo that you want. And so you can give it a name. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is a cool tone preset. You can name it anything that you want to. But then you can put it in a group. The group is basically like a folder. So here are the kind of groups that I have on here. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the user presets folder. That's kind of a default for creating your own. And it just puts it in a folder called user presets. Now here is the check boxes here. This is where you can say that I only want certain effects to be applied. So as you can see over here on the right side, I cooled down the temperature of the photo, but I also messed with a lot of other things in the basic section. So what you could actually do is uncheck all of these and just say I only want the coolness of the photo to be brought down. So you can just check here, and that's the white balance section. And it'll just apply that white balance that you selected there and you changed. But for this particular example, I want to go ahead and apply everything that I did. So I'm going to say check all there, and then I'm going to hit create. So now I'm going to go down here to our presets section. We have the user presets folder that we put the preset in, and I'm going to go right here to our cool tone. So if I were to reset this image, this was the original. This was the original photo that we started out with. And then this was the preset that we just made. This was the same exact effects that we just applied to that photo before we reset it. So you can see how easy that was to go ahead and make a preset that will pretty much go with any type of photo. So what I mean by that is actually you can go over here to this photo. Let's say, for example, I did do some adjustments here. So I'm going to go ahead and reset that. And now I can go over here to our cool tone preset that we created. Check that, and now it applies those same exact slider values to this particular photo. Now it doesn't look exactly the same because there were, if you look at the histogram here, there's a lot of valleys here, a lot of peaks and stuff. But if you go over here, the histogram looks way different. So it's not going to affect every photo exactly the same, but it's going to get you in that right direction. So that's a cool way of doing presets. If you have done presets before, but you haven't really played with them a lot, certainly go in there and play with them. Certainly go in there and test them out. Make a bunch of different presets, and you're going to really find that presets will actually save you a lot of time when it comes to editing, especially if you do a lot of repetitive editing. It's going to really save you tons and tons of time. So that's what presets can do for you there. But let's go back to this one here. I'm going to go ahead and show you something that's similar to presets, but it's actually called snapshots. Now, a lot of people actually don't use snapshots, and snapshots are really, really great if you really can't figure out what type of edit you want to go with. So what I mean by that is I have this photo here. This is the edit that we applied. So I'm going to go over here, past the presets here, past the presets section over here on the left, and I'm going to go down to where it says snapshots. Now, the difference between snapshots and presets is that snapshots are basically meant for, are presets for one particular photo. You can still save the different kinds of values, but they're meant for really one particular photo. So what I mean by that is I'm going to go ahead and click the plus button here, and you don't really get a whole lot of options with snapshots. You basically just have to name it. That's what you're doing. So I'm just going to call this edit 1 here, and I'm going to click create, and I'm going to go ahead and reset this image to where it was the original, and I'm going to do a different edit. Let's do a black and white edit just so you can see the difference here. So I'm going to increase the contrast here to increase the blacks and the whites. Let's do a little bit of clarity as well. Put a little bit of haze there. Let's cool down the highlights a little bit, tone those down a little bit more. And let's do a fun little fade. One of my favorite effects that you could do to photos is kind of a fade effect. So I'm going to go to the tone curve here. I'm going to click and create a point, and I'm going to drag this handle up. And you can see it kind of mellows out those blacks there. And there we go. So now I'm going to click the plus button again on the snapshots, and I'm going to call this edit 2, and I'm going to click create. So now I have, this is the original, and now when I go over to snapshots, I can click on edit 1, and this was the edit, the first edit that we did. Now if I go over here to snapshots again and go to edit 2, this was the second edit that we did. So now we basically have two different edits on the same exact photo, and it just gives you a way of kind of trying to decide which style of edits you want to go with. So let's say I want to really play with it a little bit more, and I want to show people this one and say, what do you think about this edit? Does it look good? And they'll say, yes, it doesn't look good. No, it doesn't look good. You know, and then you can go over here and say, well, what about this one? And all you're doing is kind of telling the side over here, the develop side, these are the settings that I want saved. The difference between snapshots and presets here is that if I go over to this particular photo, the snapshots are not there. They go away, and that's because the snapshots are saved for this particular photo. So if I go back to that photo, you can see that the snapshots are there and they're saved. So think of snapshots as kind of a preset for one particular image. So the only way I could actually create this black and white one, since we only did it for this photo, the only way I can kind of get this effect over to another photo is to go back up here and create a new preset and name it something, and then save it in the user presets. Then I can apply it to all the other photos. So let's go ahead and do that just so you can see. So I'm gonna call this black and white edit 2, because I don't know if I have another edit in there named edit 1. I'm gonna go ahead and click create there. And then, so again, I'll go back to this photo here, and I'll go down to my user presets under the presets section, and I'll click on, I know I see it in here somewhere. Where did it go? Maybe I saved it under another photo. I think that's what I did. So I'm going to go back over here and do another one. You guys in the live chat, let me know if I missed it. So let's go do it again. Black and white edit. Let's do 3. Why not? Down here, presets. There we go. There's both of them. I missed both of them. So that was the edit. So I'll go back over to this image. Huh, that's weird. It's actually not showing up. I wonder what happened there. I wonder if that's a bug actually in Lightroom. I'll have to check with Adobe on that one, because it seems to be a bug that it won't transition over even though it's a preset. You can see them there. You guys in the live chat are seeing this. You can see it go away. I'm actually going to go ahead and report that to Adobe. Found a little bug right on the Sleeklens live show. That's really nice. So, but yeah, that's how you would try to save presets and kind of save snapshots. That's a simple way of doing it. But snapshots are probably one of the least known effects or least known features that you can do in Lightroom. But it's one of the more powerful ones, because you can really you can really save a lot of time and a lot of copying and pasting of your photos back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and junking up your hard drive with a bunch of these random edits. When all you got to do is just save them as snapshots under your snapshots section there. So really great feature. I love this feature a lot. So those are the two main ones for beginners out there that I would really suggest you play around with. Now, the other feature I want to kind of go over is the rating system. There's a couple different ways of rating your photos to kind of flag them a little bit and make sure that they're the ones you actually really want to see. So let's say, for example, I have these two photos right here. If you look real closely, you can see that there's a flag up here. There's a flag icon right on this photo. You can see there's a little flag there. What that means is I want this photo to show up as a flagged photo. That means I really like the photo. It's one of my favorites. I want to keep it flagged so that way I can pull up all my flagged photos. So I have this photo flagged. I have a couple other ones flagged as well. But if I were to go over here to the filters section in the timeline down here, I click on filters and I clicked on flag, and that's only going to show me the photos here that are flagged. So for example, these 6 photos here are flagged here. If I want to remove it, so let's say I don't like this particular image, then I can click this little flag button when it's already flagged, and it will go away, and now I just have these 5 photos. Now, that's one quick way of doing a flagging system when you're rating photos that are all in one timeline. Let's say, for example, if I go to my library here, I can kind of show you a real-world application of this. Let's go here. So this is I primarily do real estate as a photography business here. So a lot of the photos I shoot are real estate photos. So I click on flags, and these are all the photos that I took from this particular house. All these down here, it doesn't really matter up here what they look like, but these are all the photos that I took for this particular house. But I only wanted the ones that are flagged to show up to know that, hey, these are the ones that I want to. These are the ones I want to deliver to the client. So let's say for this particular example, this photo right here, I have this flagged. So when I go over here to the right and click flagged, it's only going to show me the final photos that I flagged. So that's a really quick way of sorting these photos to make sure that they're the ones that you want to see. So that's a real quick real world example of it. But let's go back down near here to our folder. Let's go right here. So these are the flag folder again, or flag photos again. If I go over here to flagged and say filters off, then we'll show me every photo in this particular folder, and we're good there. So another way of rating these photos is by numbers. You can actually do a star rating or a number rating. So if I right click here, I can say set flag, set rating. And so if I go to set rating, I can say that this is a 5-star image. This is perfect. This is the main photo I really love. This is one of my favorite photos. So I click 5 stars, and now you can see that there's a 5-star image down here. So I can actually make like a smart filter, a smart collection, which pulls all of my 5-star images together, and that's one way of rating there. I don't use these stars as much, just because that I find that as far as the work that I do, flagging kind of gets me in the right direction. I don't really star a lot of images. I used to star a lot of images, but that will start junking up your rating system. So flaggings don't really do that as much. One thing you can also do, let's say you're working with a photo, and let's say you've edited all these photos here, and this photo right here if I go back to the develop module, this photo right here might be giving me problems. This is the only photo that I'm really having problems with, but I don't want to go. I don't want to edit right now. I'll come back to it eventually. What I can do is right click on it and say set color label. So I can say this is a red photo. So I go over here, and now this has like a red tint to it. So what that tells me, if I'm working in this particular range of photos, is that this one is unfinished. This one needs to be edited more. There's something that needs to be done with this photo. So I don't have to spend all of my time trying to fix this photo, and I can move on to some other ones, but I eventually need to come back to it. So that's a way of rating these as well. That's a really cool rating system, but probably the flagging of the photos, if I go over here to the top left corner of the thumbnail, you can click there, and now it will flag it. Flagging is probably one of the ones that will be more useful. Star ratings are good. A lot of people do it differently. Color ratings are good, but flaggings will probably be one of the more useful to a beginner out there who's just trying to find their particular great photos there. So let's go ahead and talk about another quick feature in Lightroom, which I really, really like, because this just shows how well Photoshop and Lightroom work together. And again, these are beginner tips here for Lightroom, just some simple beginner features that a lot of people really want to know about in Lightroom. So let's find a good photo to do this with. Let's go back to our original photo that we were playing around with. I'm going to go ahead and reset this. And let's say that I would never want to do this to this particular photo because it's a great photo, but let's say I wanted to remove this person from the photo. I could go over here to our clone and healing tools and try to remove it. So I can do this, try to go over this person here, just doing it really sloppy, but go over this person here and try to let Lightroom do it as best as it could. And that would probably be the best without spending a whole lot of time on it in Lightroom. And it just doesn't look good. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Command Z on that to bring her back. So this would probably be an image where I would want to pop it directly in Photoshop and edit there. So what this really works well when you want to do a bunch of going back and forth, typically called round tripping. If you want to round trip, so basically go to Photoshop, do your edits there, bring it back into Lightroom. This is a really great feature that I love about Lightroom. Is I'm just going to right click and I'm going to say edit in, and I'm going to say edit in Adobe Photoshop. And what that's going to do is open this photo directly in Photoshop and allow you to start editing your photo there. You don't have to. Before you would have to take your photo, export it as a PSD or something like that. I don't know if it was able to. Maybe my Photoshop is very behind. There we go. You would typically have to take the photo and export it as a PSD or export it as a JPEG, a TIFF file, and then import it into Photoshop and do your edits and then export it again and then bring it back into Lightroom. This is a feature that I really, really love. And all you have to do is basically open it, do an edit in Photoshop. So I'm going to do all the stuff that I would normally do in Photoshop. I'm going to go ahead and get a brand new layer, make sure my clone stamp tool is good there. And I'm just going to clone out this person really quickly, just like that. Probably not the most perfect image, but we'll try to make it look as good as we can here. And there we go. So let's just say that works well. As we're here, might as well get rid of some of the other things here, just like that. All right. So we removed the person, no longer there. So now I want to bring this photo back into Lightroom. So there's no more exporting and no more importing back into Lightroom. All you basically have to do is just close out of the image, and I'm going to say save. And it's not going to ask you where you want to save it. It's not going to ask you anything like that. It's just going to save the photo. And now we're going to go back into Lightroom and wait for it to do its import. And let's go back and find our image. I kind of scrolled too far here. Where did we go? There we go. So here's our photo. It automatically imported back into Lightroom. I didn't have to do anything. So here was our original that we played with, and then here was our edited photo. So you can see how easy that was. It was really, really easy. No more importing, no more exporting, no more nothing. I just had to just save the photo, and it saves it in the catalog, in your main Lightroom catalog folder, and it saves it there, and you're good to go. So really, really awesome feature. Love that in Lightroom. Use that a lot of times when I'm editing photos. It's a really great feature, especially if you want to keep all of your photos cataloged together. If you want to keep them in Lightroom and you want to, that's where you want to keep all your photos housed so that you can easily find them. That's a really great feature as well. So now we're going to go over probably one of the features that not a lot of people also use either, because they kind of really don't get down in this section here, but is the lens correction. So I'm going to go to this particular photo here, and let's say I want to do a lens correction on this photo. So I'm going to go down here to lens correction, and the first option is remove chromatic aberration. If you have a lot of chromatic aberration, a lot of fringing in your photos, you can click that, and Lightroom will try to do its best to get rid of all that purple and green fringing. But here is the part that is really, really great. If you click Enable Profile Corrections, that's going to detect the make and model of the lens, the camera combination, and all that kind of stuff. It's going to detect all of that and automatically apply a lens correction to your photo. So depending on what you have, you can have a little bit of warping around the edges. You can have a little bit of vignetting. So you can see we've toggled that off, toggle it back on. It kind of popped the center out a little bit and also brightened up the edges. So this is going to help if you want to make sure you have those really, really straight lines in your photo, and make sure you have the perfectly level photo and the brightness where it should be. That's one really great feature of that. So to take this one step further, if we go over to the manual tab, this is where we can also help with the fringing here. We can take we don't have it in this particular photo, I don't think, just because this is not one of those photos that you would really see a lot of fringing. But if you still see purple fringing, you can take this purple slider and move it over to kind of desaturate those purple tones. Same with the greens, you can do it there. You can actually decrease or increase the vignetting that you might see, so you can brighten up those edges a little bit more. And you can also play with the distortion a little bit, try to kind of fake it a little bit, make the distortion a little bit more less noticeable. But what I'm going to do is typically what I've seen a lot of people do, and what really works well, is if you need a lot of straight lines, just like this particular image here, this image probably needs a lot of straight lines. You can do the profile corrections, the lens profile corrections, but you can also do the transform. The transform is transform section is a really great way to help you get those straight vertical lines, help you kind of level out your photo. So a lot of times, auto will actually do a very, very fantastic job. So I'm going to click on auto, and you can see it kind of warps the photo a little bit. Now the sides here are very, very straight. The top part here is pretty straight, and all the sides down here are really straight. Now, one thing you probably notice, obviously, are the white sections here. We have to get rid of those because obviously you can't have a photo that has these white sections. So what you could do is actually scale the photo up using this slider here. You could try that way. But what I usually do is just say constrain crop. And what that's going to do is crop in the image to kind of get rid of those white marks. Now we have another problem to deal with, and that is that the person is right here. We actually want more of the photo. So this is where we have to take the Y offset. The Y offset means the up and down, basically, these kind of scrolling up and down. So I'm going to take the Y offset and start moving that over to the right, and that's going to bring back the foreground of our image to bring the model back and keep everything straight. So now we don't have those bending in lines. We don't have anything else. We just have this really, really nice photo of the leading line going there and our model down in the back part there. We can actually take the X offset, and what that's going to do is go left or right. So I'm going to move it over just a little bit to kind of get it more in the center. And there we go. So you can see the total combination of what happened. If we take off the lens profile, you can see that it kind of darkens that way. It's kind of a cool vignette, actually, but you can actually apply that if you want to. But from here, this is where we would go ahead and start editing our photo to their basic edit. So we would take up the shadows, kind of bring up the shadows a little bit. If we want to really brighten up this area while leaving a little bit of this dark, just to highlight where our model is, we can get the radial tool, which I'll talk about a little bit more in just a little bit. But the radial filter here, you can drag this over. I'm going to reset my values, and I can increase the exposure in that area. So now it kind of almost looks like there's a light shining right on her, but all of this other area is not affected. So that's kind of a cool little effect there. So let's look at the before and after here. You can see kind of what we started off with. This is before the distortion removal there, but you can see how drastic the difference between these two photos is. So that's a really cool feature. The transform and the lens correction, really, really, really amazing features. Especially for my line of work, the real estate stuff, I have to use profile corrections and or lens corrections and the auto transform. It's almost a mandatory thing to make sure you have your straight lines there. So that's a kind of a gist of the transform and the lens profiles. So now let's go to the camera profiles. The camera profiles is another great tool here that Adobe actually just kind of made more prevalent in a way, and that allows you to change the way that kind of Lightroom sees the colors of your image, the RGB tones in your image. So if we go over here to in the basic section, if we go over here to this little menu button, there's like 4 little squares over here. If you click on there, you're going to see you're going to see what are called camera profiles. And these allow you, they kind of look like presets in a way, but these allow you to change how Adobe will look at the colors in your image. So I have this particular photo right here. I'm going to go to the Adobe Color. You can see that not a lot of changes there, but if I go to the Adobe Standard, a little bit of change, but if I go to Vivid there, you can see it punches up the little bit of yellows, kind of darkens the greens a little bit, but it does a little bit of that yellow, a little bit of that warm tone there, and it looks really good. But this is why these are different from presets. If I were to close this profile browser, if I were to close this, none of these values are changed. If I go down to the colors, none of those values are changed. Tone curve, none of these values are changed. So you're basically applying a camera profile to your RAW file, because they only work on RAW files. You're applying that to your RAW file, and now you can go forth with more changes here. So you can go here, you can take down the highlights, kind of give it a little bit more of a dynamic range here. There we go. You can actually cool down the image if you wanted to, right there. And all of that was done basically just by doing a camera profile, so you can see how it looks there. So it's a really great feature. You can go back into the camera profiles, you can look around, go to some down here, and some of them are going to be really amazing, and some of them are going to just be a little bit too much when it comes to changing colors. But we have Sleeklens also has a little bit of the camera profiles as well, and they really make your photos look a little bit different, but they still allow you to change all the sliders to kind of get the effect that you're wanting. Also, you have the amount slider here. This will allow you to increase the amount of the effect or decrease the amount of the effect. That's also a great way of doing that as well. So camera profiles are really, really great. The camera profiles actually used to be down where the calibration section were, or the effects section were as well. They used to be over here, but now they kind of moved them up and made them a little bit more prevalent. The profiles are also available to be compatible with Photoshop as well, just like the presets. Just like the presets in Lightroom work with Adobe Camera Raw, so do the camera profiles. So with another photo, let's pick a good one here. Let's play around with. I'm going to show you another technique here. Let's go to this one. So I have this photo here, and I want to apply a adjustment tool, local adjustment basically. I want to apply a local adjustment, and there's a couple different tools up here that you can play around with to do that. So you saw that we played with the radial filter here. This radial filter basically allows you to draw out a circle, an oval, some sort of circle shape, and draw it over a subject. And I'm going to reset these. And you could apply different effects. So you could brighten up that area, and it's just going to brighten up that area by itself, not touching any of the kind of photo around it. You can see that it's going to affect only what's in this box here, and you actually have a feather option, which allows you to feather out the effect so it can be more harsh like that, which you would never want to do. But you could also feather it, and it looks a little bit more natural. So it's going to only affect what's in this circle. If you want it to affect what's outside of the circle, you click this invert button, and that's going to affect what's outside. So now the outside is bright, but the inside is dark. So that's a way of, it's another way of actually creating a vignette. So if I clicked the invert there and darken the edges, you can see it's starting to darken all the edges. And then I can create a new radial filter on top of that if I wanted to, and increase the exposure. And now it's like a really, really dark vignette, but it's actually highlighting that model. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. That's one way of creating a vignette. That's not the way I would recommend, but that's one way of doing it. We can also do another local adjustment. That would be a radial filter. A radial filter is really great for kind of like gradient filter. The gradient filter is kind of like the radial filter, but the gradient filter will only apply kind of in a straight line and feather out. So I'm going to apply a little bit of warmth. I'm just going to just show you, for example, apply a little bit of warmth to this sky here. So I'm going to take the temp up, and you can see that it's starting to get a little bit more warm up there and fade out and still be kind of green and blue down there. And it's just a really great way of doing that. You can darken it up as well. A lot of great features there when it comes to the radial filter. It's a really great feature for using on skies. So for this particular example, I'll show you kind of on this one. I'm going to click the radial filter down here, and I'm going to drag it straight down from the top. to roughly around here and reset my values. And I'm going to darken the sky up a little bit. You can see it starts to darken. And I can also apply a little bit of coolness to it, just like that. Darken it up a little bit more. And I'm just having fun with it. There's no real rhyme or reason what I'm doing, but I'm just having a little fun with it. But you can see that it darkens up those skies. So it's kind of like a graduated neutral density filter or something like that for your camera, but it's a in-software solution. So it kind of darkened up that sky. So just real quick, the before and after here. This is the original without any edits, but this is edited with it and brings out that sky there. So kind of a cool little effect there. And then we also have the standard brush. So let me go to this particular image. I have this brush, and the brush is basically the same thing as the gradient filter, the radial filter, basically the same thing, but what you have is kind of a freehand way of doing it. So let's say I wanted to highlight just the model, nothing else. I don't want to touch anything else. I'm going to take my exposure up a little bit, and I'm going to start painting on this model. And you can see I'm painting around just like I would do like a regular brush, painting around and just highlighting this model. So I'm just brightening her up a little bit, and now I can brighten her up a little bit more. I can take the clarity up a little bit more as well, take the shadow up, get a little bit of shadow from her face, and that's just brightening the model up. It's not doing anything else. So you can see the difference here. It doesn't add a whole lot because for this particular photo, I don't need to edit a whole lot for the model, but it just brightens her up, and it just caused me to go in there and paint it away. So really, really great tool. Probably out of those three, I guess, I would probably use the radial filter more, just because there's a lot of spots that are kind of spotlights that I want to just kind of highlight. But you have a lot of different options there. If you're more comfortable doing a freehand version of it, you can definitely do that. But just play around with them, see which ones that you really, really like. And you definitely have a lot of local adjustments. You could actually edit one whole photo using just the local adjustments and be totally fine. So they're really, really powerful and something to play around with, definitely. So the last one I'm going to talk about, the last little feature for the beginner in Lightroom is actually exporting. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to take this photo here. We don't really need to edit this one, but I'm going to go over here to File. I'm going to go to Export. And this is going to bring my export dialog box, and this is where you choose how you want the photo to be exported. So if you want a JPEG, if you want a TIFF, if you want a DNG, if you want a PSD file, you choose how the photo is exported. So over here, just like in the regular version of Lightroom, you can actually have presets set for how you want the photo to be exported. So you can see we have a full-size JPEG, and what that's going to do, just real quickly, is export this to my desktop. It's just going to give me a JPEG file. You can see right here, image format JPEG. It's going to export a full res JPEG, 100% quality, no file limit, no nothing. And it's going to be the highest resolution JPEG that I can get out of this particular photo. I can also remove the metadata, the location data, all that kind of stuff. But if I wanted to kind of play with this a little bit more, what I could do is say I want to put it in my desktop, but I want to put it in a different folder. So I'm going to say put in a subfolder. I can say Sleeklens edit, and I can also rename it. So instead of it being the name of this would be the name of it when it exported. I can say rename to, and I can say file name, custom name with sequence. So I'll do custom name, and here's where I can type it in, waterfall. There we go. And now it's going to export as waterfall as the file name. The image here, we can say we want a PSD TIFF. Original would be the raw file. Let's see, and yeah, so those are the different options that you can do there. If you're saving this for like a web version or something like that, you probably don't want the full quality, so you can actually back down the quality a little bit, and that will allow you to get a little bit lesser file size. But when it comes to that, you can also limit the file size in kilobytes. So let's say you want it to be a maximum of 5 megabytes, so you say 500 kilobytes there, and that's pretty much it as far as the file settings go. You can also resize the image, so this is going to be the full size resolution JPEG, the full megapixels, everything, but you can also resize it as well. So let's say I'm going to save this to Facebook or something like that. I can do 3600 by 2400, and it'll resize to that particular pixel size. And you can also do the resolution 300 or 150 or something like that. You can choose the lower resolution, the lower the file size will be. You can do exporting here, the export sharpening here. You can sharpen it for the screen. If you do sharpening in the develop module, I wouldn't recommend doing that for the output sharpening. But if you don't do any sharpening here, go ahead and put that on there. Standard's probably the best if you don't do any in develop module sharpening there. And you could also do a watermark here. You can do post-processing, saying once you export the file, you can open it up in another program, show it in your Finder or Windows Explorer or something like that, and then you just click export. But let's say I wanted to go ahead and I know these are the settings that I'm going to be using from now on when I export my photos. I want it to be these exact same settings. What I can do is click the add button here, and this is going to look very familiar for the presets. You can just name this preset. I'm going to call this temp preset, and there we go. And now I can put it in a folder, so I'll just say user presets folder there, and I'll click create. So now if I go over here, I'm going to click on this image and go to export. So this was the settings that I had for the previous folder. So I'm going to go over here, and now I have these different settings. These are totally different settings here. But now let's go back to the temp preset, and now you can see all of them change to exactly what we had before. Very easy option, very easy way of doing exporting. Another really quick way of doing exporting, if you don't want to go back into the export module all the time whenever you export, you can actually go to File, Export with Preset, and you can choose that temp preset that we just made right there. And once I click there, it's going to automatically export it into the settings that I put in there. So that's it, guys. Those are some really quick and easy Lightroom features for beginners out there who are looking into Lightroom, looking into trying to figure out what they want to do with Lightroom, and seeing, kind of getting used to the software. It can be confusing, especially the library module is probably the most confusing, piece of workspace in here, because you got all of your workspaces over here. You got all of your collections over here. You got all kinds of stuff. These are all the folders here. It can be confusing, but just play around with it a little bit. But those are the kind of the 7 or 8 kind of tips that you can do with the develop module to try to start getting more use to Lightroom. So that's what I kind of wanted to cover today. I really hope that helps out the beginners out there. I really think that's a perfect place to start when it comes to Lightroom and getting used to Lightroom and figuring out exactly what you want to do. But as a thank you guys for joining me in this live show, I promised you at the beginning, what you can do is actually use the coupon code over at Sleeklens. You can use the coupon code LIVE25, and that will give you 25% off anything on sleeklens.com. It's only going to be good for the next 24 hours. I'm going to shut the coupon down in 24 hours. So if you have something on there that you want to try, maybe the presets that we talked about, if you want to try some of the presets that we have, feel free to do that. If you want to play with some of the courses that we have, you can definitely do that as well. Got a lot of stuff up there. Photoshop Actions, a lot of stuff out there that you can play with again. So remember, use the coupon code LIVE25 if you want to check something out there on Sleeklens. If you do happen to check out something there, let me know what you got. Put it in the comment thread of this live broadcast, or go to the members club and let us know what you got, and we'll be definitely try to help you out when it comes to getting used to the new products as well. So one thing I do want to cover here is actually I want to give a quick reminder of the raw edit contest that we got here. So if you go over to the Sleeklens Club members page, the Sleeklens Club members page, you go there to the Facebook page, and you're going to see this special announcement here. And what this is a contest that we're doing for those of you who kind of like editing, doing a lot of different editing. What we do is we supply you with the raw edit, the raw file, and you edit it any way you want to. So you can see this is where you kind of enter your submissions. You basically just go ahead and post the JPEG, the final edit of your JPEG, as a comment in this thread. And what we'll do is we'll choose all of our favorite ones even ones as goofy as this one, putting a little alien there, even ones as goofy as that one. We'll choose our favorite one, and the winner will receive a $50 gift card to Sleeklens, and you guys can get whatever you want there. So we're going to be doing one of these raw edits every month. So if you haven't figured it, if you haven't seen this, or if you kind of try to figure this raw edit out, because it can be kind of fun, just go ahead to our Sleeklens Members Club page, click on this announcement. That'll take you over to Sleeklens, and you are free to download the raw file here and start editing away. So everybody out there in chat, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm going to hang around just a little bit. So if you have any questions about any of the things we discussed, please let me know. I'd really appreciate it. I really love to see all the comments there. But if not, I'm going to go ahead and head off here in just a little bit. I am going to go ahead and play with a couple different photos here so you can kind of see some of the things that you can do in Lightroom. So I'll go back over here. And let's play with this photo here as well. So I'm going to increase the shadows here. There we go. And increase the contrast. One thing I did want to cover, just kind of what the tone curve that I talked about, because there were a couple people that were having questions about how to create that tone curve, is the kind of fade that I like to do. And I'll show you again real quick. You click the button there in this bottom left box. It kind of represents the blacks, and you just kind of increase the blacks a little bit or decrease the blacks. And it starts to fade out the image and kind of gives that kind of hazy look to it. It's kind of a cool little effect. But that's kind of how you do that effect there. But there's also another way of doing it. I'm going to go ahead and click here. Oh, I need to delete that one. Bring this down. You could actually do it this way as well. You can take the top point, bring that over, bring that here. That's a way to increase contrast, a simple way to increase contrast. But you can also bring this up and then bring this down, and that kind of does the same effect. You're kind of creating like an offset line there. Does really kind of cool. So that's a way of creating a little bit of a misty effect. See, it kind of works well with this particular image because it's kind of a water image. It looks like mist is kind of coming off this waterfall. So if we wanted to add a little bit of contrast back in there, we could definitely do it that way. And increase the vibrance. There we go. Maybe do a little bit of sharpening to it. We can also get crazy with it and play with the hue and saturation, so we can change the colors. Take the greens, give it a little bit more green, give them a little bit less green, more yellow. And we're just playing around with it, creating a different kind of image. So it's kind of a cool little effect, kind of a cool little image there. There we go. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of play with that, kind of show you some simple things. I just did it on this live broadcast, but for those of you who are new with Lightroom, that was a simple way of creating a cool little image in Lightroom. So if we don't have any questions in the live chat, I'm gonna go ahead and head off here. But remember, if you're going over to Sleeklens, make sure you use the coupon code Sleeklens, use the coupon code Live25 to get 25% off anything on Sleeklens. Yeah, if you guys don't have any more questions, I'll go ahead and get off here. And guys, hope you have a great Thursday, or whatever time zone you're in. I hope you have a great Thursday or very, very early Friday. But thank you guys for joining me. Remember to visit sleeklens.com, Live25 for anything on there, 25% off. This has been Jordan from Sleeklens, and I'll see you in the next live show.